Let's get to the news.
This is Ron DeSantis. He suffers from Frownington's disease, which causes his smile to look more like he's wincing from sitting on his own testicles.
Okay.
Court sees through Ron DeSantis lies behind the law banning medical care for trans youth.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, just let me smack my microphone. This year has all been downhill for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. His presidential aspirations are going up in smoke thanks to his complete lack of charisma and general campaign incompetence. His losing war against Disney is costing Florida taxpayers millions of dollars, and now a federal court all but called DeSantis a liar for the way he justified his ban on medical care for trans youth. So if you'll recall, this is where, like, in Florida, basically, if a doctor if anyone seeks medical care for a trans kid, they can be, like, they call that child abuse, and like, oh, that's not
Didn't he also
allowed.
try to make it illegal to go out of Florida to seek that as well?
Yep. I mean, they've all been doing it. Texas has been doing that.
Yeah. I feel like being in a, quote, free country and then being told you can't travel for healthcare, it makes me want to crave some of the other ways the United States has classically gained its freedoms. Yeah, just throw a little tea in the Boston Harbor, you know.
What's amazing to me about that is, like, these same people are the people who, like, defend the Confederacy and be like, oh no, it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. And it's like, okay, yeah, states' rights to do what? But, like, why are you trying to infringe on other states' rights? Why are you trying to make these things that are supposed to be states' rights national? Like, you're Florida. Don't worry about what people do outside of Florida. That's none of your goddamn business. At least if you're gonna be consistent, it's none of your goddamn business. But when has the GOP ever been consistent?
They will always operate within what is most convenient for them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. Religious liberty good unless it's a statue of Baphomet, or unless we call abortion a religious right.
Yep.
Then it's bad.
Yeah. So DeSantis repeatedly claimed that the law was necessary to prevent youth from being mutilated, which, of course, anyone who actually spends 10 seconds looking into it knows that that's not what happens. Like, in some very rare cases, you might find someone that got a mastectomy when they were 16. And, like, that's it. No dicks are getting chopped off. No fake dicks are getting put on. None of the stuff they're fear-mongering about is actually happening.
Especially considering that, like, most of those procedures we will not do unless somebody has gone under hormone therapy for a certain amount of time. There's already a year or two that you can't do it in anyway.
Yeah, so when I was saying maybe sometimes you'll find a 16-year-old who has had a mastectomy, what that ends up being is, like, the rare instance where you have that, they started hormone therapy when they were like 12, or they started puberty blockers when they were like 12. They've been in therapy. They have consistently presented as the gender that they're transitioning to. They're otherwise mentally healthy. Like, there's so many restrictions on it but like, these guys are presenting it as like, oh yeah, all a little girl needs to do is be like, I'm a boy now, and then immediately they schedule her for surgery and chop her tits off. And it's like, okay, well, first off, why are you so concerned about the boobs of minors? Like, that's a bit creepy. Maybe mind your own business. But like, more importantly, that's just not what fucking happens.
Yeah, so I'm gonna shout out another creator real quick who does a ton of work on this. If you ever want to learn, like, how to see through a lot of this kind of skeezy language that is used for these articles and these bills, Aaron Reed on Twitter. Aaron does a fuck ton, like, to the point where I wonder how they function. Fuck ton of reporting on anti-trans bills. So if ever you are wondering, hey, wait a minute, is this bill actually, not for the betterment of children's lives, but actually for the restrictions of trans people's rights? Erin's probably talked about it already. She's probably a good place to go.
Yeah. And DeSantis says, and when you talk to people, and I know like people in your industry will dress it up with a euphemism and they'll say it's healthcare to cut off the private parts of a 14-year-old or 15-year-old. That's not healthcare, that's mutilation. Like, okay, but like as we just discussed, that's not actually happening. So the fact that you're saying that is just a lie. That's just plain and simple. It's a lie.
I love living in America. I would say don't you, but I know you don't.
I don't. I love living in Canada.
Where you have fewer of these problems.
I like my free healthcare and my relatively cheap Scotch. I found a 12-year-old bottle for like under $60. Single malt 12-year-old Scotch. It's not bad.
So I don't drink, so I actually have no context for if that's good or not.
It is good. So Scotch generally gets smoother with age. So like the older it is, the better it tastes.
Okay, so like when it's just freshly made.
Yeah, but also like you also have to consider like the distillery is going to like they have to be compensated. Like if they're going to have this thing just sitting in their basement for 12 years, like that's like they could have sold it earlier as not as good a product, so they're making it take longer.
Yeah,
they need to be compensated for that. So like the older ones go up in price. So finding a 12-year for like $60 is pretty fucking awesome.
Like one of I guess it's also one of the reasons why there's an upcharge on Tabasco compared to a lot of other hot sauces. It's aged for 3 years.
Yeah. So like my probably my favorite Scotch is the Macallan 12-year, which a bottle of that is $120.
Yeah.
And then I was at a liquor store in Toronto when I was doing all the filming with Paul. We just popped in the liquor store, see what they had. They had a display where they had like the super pricey scotches. There was I want to say it was a 35-year-old Scotch for $10,000 for the bottle. And I'm just like, I'll bet you that Scotch is really, really fucking good. But you know what is more useful than that? A car. You can get a car for that price.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you have to be flush with enough cash where you can justify that kind of expense.
I cannot.
Patreon.com/ViceReno.
Buy me a $10,000 Scotch.
Like I feel like I'm spending too much money when I spend $25 on a Magic card. So I think $10,000 Scotch is a bit outside of my palate basically forever.
Like as cool says me not processing the whole sentence and only hearing, I found a 12-year-old.
So when I heard you say it the way you did, the cadence did make it seem like that was the end of the sentence for a split moment.
Nobody clipped that out of context.
Oy.
Yeah, Jimmy's saying Talisker is a really good whiskey if you can get it. Yeah, they usually have Talisker up here. Anyway, back to Rhonda.
Rhonda Santis.
Rhonda Santis. Rhonda says, when I'm analyzing this is the judge. Sorry. Judge Hinkle. When I'm analyzing the governor's motivation, what should I make of these statements? Hinkle asked here at a hearing on the law. This seems to be more than just hyperbole. He's presiding over a challenge to the law by 3 families with trans kids. He has issued a stay against the law from taking effect while it's being challenged. And he was also the judge that struck down Florida's ban on Medicaid coverage for gender-affirming care. And in that decision, he wrote, gender identity is real. Because it fucking is. It's just
if gender identity is not real, then how are all these people identifying? It's one of those things like when somebody says a non-binary person doesn't exist, and then just like a bunch of NBs come out and go,
"Hi, I'm here." I pinched
myself. I seem to be here right now, though. Strange.
Yeah. So Hinkle said he wondered if the plaintiffs could prove DeSantis supported the law because he hates trans people. The attorney for the family said that the law is unconstitutional as written, so his motives are not the deciding factor. However, I feel like his motives should be taken into account, like he clearly does hate trans people, so maybe we should not let him write laws about trans people. Be like, if a legislator is an out and like just obvious Nazi, maybe don't let them write laws that are going to affect Jewish people.
Didn't we
Or maybe just don't vote for them, because, like, yeah, don't vote for Trump is the message there.
Didn't we do something similar with this with McCarthy years and years and years ago? The whole, like, famous clip, "At long last, have you no sense of decency left?" Like, wasn't the character and intent behind his actions actually considered a deciding factor, finally?
I don't remember.
I need to go brush up on my Red Scare lore.
Tasha says that sounds like something to be resolved at the ballot box. Yeah, don't vote for Nazis. You would think that would be just an easy, like, non-controversial statement, but apparently it's not, because they'll be like, oh no, they're not really Nazis, they just use all the same rhetoric as the Nazis.
Yeah, the problem is that people in the United States have been very thoroughly desensitized to, and granted, we know this is how this is going to work because this is what happened in Germany as well. People are very desensitized to what Nazi rhetoric looks like and sounds like. And we know that they were desensitized to that even back when, even back in the 40s in America. The only reason that we went to war against the Nazis is we were able to paint enough of a bad picture of them for people to actually go to war with them. But we had brown shirts. Like, that was an actual sect of people in the United States around that time, and the America First movement around that time, that all were pro-Nazis. Like, we've had this problem for a long time. We've just never been able to get rid of it.
You know what? This is reminding me. This will come back later in a later news item, but it strikes me as odd that, like, Trump is very obviously a fascist. Like, it's not even subtle anymore. Like, if you're gonna be like, oh no, he's not really, that's hyperbole. Like, no, fuck off with that. He has come out and said, I want to be a dictator. I'm gonna be a dictator on day one. Like, that's not like, and that's far from the only thing he said. I've lost track of how many times he has said things that are just out and out fascist. So it's just become a matter of, like, when people tell you who they are, just believe them when they say it. But for all that, it's kind of striking the parallels between Trump and Neville Chamberlain. Because, like, Neville Chamberlain, when Hitler was coming to power and first expanding throughout Europe, and, like, I think he was prime minister when they took over Poland. Yeah, I don't
remember.
So his whole thing was appeasement. Like, oh, if we, like, oh no, we've been through World War I. We don't want to start World War II. So we just give Hitler what he wants, and then he'll be peaceful. Just leave him be. Don't antagonize him.
But that doesn't work.
Yeah,
like, you can't just ignore when somebody's saying that genocide is good. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Ignoring it just normalizes it.
Yeah, so that was Neville Chamberlain's whole thing. But, like, Trump is kind of the same with Putin. Like, a lot of his rhetoric is like, oh, well, look, Joe Biden is starting World War III because under me, Putin was afraid to attack Ukraine. And, like, we should just do some of what Putin says because, like, he
spent all of his time sucking Putin's schlong.
Yeah, I know, but, like, it's a very. But his rhetoric is very much in a, like, I'm doing this to prevent World War III, and oh look, wars break out under Joe Biden. What is that? Oh, somebody redeemed a hydrate. Yeah, I've been drinking the Scotch. I should probably drink some water. Thank you, Stromboli for Wi-Fi.
War is going to happen in foreign countries, irrespective of what we do. We are not the arbiter of whether wars do or do not begin.
Yeah,
all the time.
But that's his rhetoric is consistently like, oh, Joe Biden is starting wars. I didn't start any new wars while I was president. I continued a lot of them, and Joe Biden does drone strikes a lot less than I did. Although, to be fair, Trump did do less drone strikes than Obama.
Obama's kind of known for it.
Yeah, he wasn't as good as we all like to think he was, but I'd still rather have him than Trump. Anyway,
president tier list. We'll have to do that one day.
Sure. Yeah. So DeSantis has been basically relying on his anti-trans stuff to, win over the MAGA crowd that might be worried about Trump being a bit too unhinged. But like DeSantis is equally
So-
unhinged. I don't know.
So he tries to, and now I recognize there is logic in that strategy. I understand there's logic in that strategy, but I'm going to say it in the most stupid terms possible. He's going to try to make himself seem less unhinged by supporting genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Got it.
All right.
Good to
That's just
know.
it. This judge doesn't like Ron DeSantis, and he's likely going to strike down the laws that DeSantis is passing. And DeSantis is not going to be president anytime soon. Thank fuck.
Ice Rogue says president tier list. Who's worse, Trump or Reagan? Reagan. The
Yeah, because
thing is,
Reagan actually got stuff done.
Yeah, Reagan actually had the charisma to carry all of his shit forward.
Have you
There was not.
have you heard the leaked recording of when he called Nixon, and you know how Nixon taped everything? And it was right after some African nations agreed to something in the UN that the US didn't like. I forget the details, but Reagan called Nixon, and there was like a good minute-long conversation where he was talking about those monkeys from Africa that aren't even comfortable in shoes.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
I did
it's-
not hear that.
Oh, it's bad. Is like Reagan was like, and what's
Don't
what's
worry, it's just
interesting
locker
here-
room talk. That worked for
Well,
Trump.
see, that's the thing, is because this is how racism spreads. It's not like you'll never find a racist that just comes out, well, except for like the occasional nut job, but like you don't really find racists that come out and be like, oh yes, I am racist, I hate these people. They always try and couch it in like terms that are socially acceptable, except when they think they're alone. And so what's interesting is the terminology that Reagan used when on the phone with Nixon. In the same tapes, Nixon then repeated that same stuff to other people like several times that day, because now he feels vindicated that this other white guy feels the same way as I do. So now I'm going to start saying the same thing to these other white guys that I know.
and then
and, like,
suddenly it
that's-
moves.
That's
It
how
moves
it spreads.
from the back. It moves from the thing you say in the background with all of your friends to, oops, it slipped out once, to no, this is just what I say.
Yeah.
Like it, and the thing is, if the group of people that you've been saying it to behind the scenes for the longest time are okay with that, even if you get ostracized for saying those things, eventually what happens is you don't feel like it because you have such a large group supporting you anyway, and now
Yeah.
suddenly your bad decision is a point of vindication.
So Monorail says Reagan didn't get things done, his team did, and Reagan just explained it to the public. So the thing with that is that, like, that's kind of the same point I was trying to make, is that, like, Reagan had people that he could rely on to actually, like, do stuff and actually, like, work in the, within the system of government to get what he wanted done, whereas Trump just hired a bunch of idiots that didn't know what the fuck was going on. And so
Trump
he
seemed to
couldn't-
focus mostly on grabbing sycophants.
Yeah, he couldn't get things done because he hired people that didn't know how to get things done, because he just hired people that sucked his dick the most. Whereas Reagan actually knew how to hire people that knew what to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because every single thing that Trump has done on his campaign trail and within his presidency was learned from Reagan. Like so there was a sign driving on one of the main roads around where I live that was for a politician who was trying to push himself in Georgia. I don't remember his name, and the sign's not there anymore. I wish I'd taken a picture of it, because the sign said, inspired by Reagan, energized by Trump.
Oh, God.
And I'm just like, if that does not show you the exact formula that is being used there, especially considering that the whole Make America Great Again movement was literally lifted directly off of Reagan's older speeches, it just, I would have to go Reagan worse, because Reagan is a source.
So Monorail 425 says Oliver North, Iran Contra, Nicaragua, hostage crisis in Iran. Are you just quoting "We Didn't Start the Fire"? Because that's a good song, but I don't remember the lyrics. Oh, Agamotto
Honestly,
apparently got a bunch of ads and now is back. I'm sorry
Mama
about the
says
ads.
Reagan set the stage.
Full disclosure, every now and then I get a little pop-up on my thing saying, run a 1-minute ad break, and I never click it. So Twitch just decides to do that on their own.
Yep.
Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.